to speed. We're going. This is Sunday, the 6th of August, 2006. I'm Chris Abercrombie, and this is an oral history of the Smoky Valley. We're speaking currently with John Altenborg, a longtime Lindsborg attorney. Also with us is Jay Richardson, who's helping out with the technical end of today's recording. And John, first of all, thank you for consenting to provide us with an oral history. Some historian in the future is going to appreciate this very much.
Thank you.
I always say we go to an awful lot of work for making a tape that one person is going to watch sometime in the next 100 years. But that one person is going to be important for them. First of all, the Altenborg family. When did the family come to the valley? Do you know approximately, was it your grandfather or your father?
Well, first of all, it wasn't the Altenborg family.
Okay.
My dad's name originally was Anderson. And I think they came here around 1800.
1900.
No, 1900,
Yeah, okay.
Excuse me. Around 1900.
And so there were so many Andersons?
Well, they were all born in Sweden. There was my father, and he had 3 brothers and 1 sister. And of course, their name was Anderson in Sweden. But for some reason, which I don't know, he changed his name to Altenborg. And I think, like so many places, there were a lot of John Andersons. So he changed it to Altenborg, and my understanding is that he picked that name. It's a German name with a Swedish ending.
Okay.
There is a town, when I was in the Army, we were in Europe a while, and I saw it on a map. There is a town in Germany, Altenburg.
Oh, okay.
And I think he served part of his cabinet making apprenticeship in that town, plus some other towns in France and Sweden. So he changed his name to Altenborg and put the Swedish
B-O-R-G.
B-O-R-G. So when he came to this country, he came here in 1904 just to visit the St. Louis World's Fair. And when he came here, his name was Altenborg. And he visited the fair, and that's where the Swedish pavilion was, you remember?
Mm-hmm.
It was there in 1904 as a Swedish exhibition. And from there, I guess he just kind of decided he'd look over the country, or he liked it or something. He came out here to Lindsborg, where his mother and dad lived, and his brothers and sister. And he just stayed.
Ah.
They were all carpenters, and evidently they could find work. He was more of a cabinet maker than a carpenter. He didn't really build houses or repair houses. He built the cabinets and things that went in the kitchens and bathrooms and so on.
Now, so that his mother and father and some of his siblings actually came here
Yeah.
before he did.
I think, excuse me, his mother and father were here, and I think he and another brother were the only 2 that stayed behind.
Okay.
So when Dad came, he still had a brother in Sweden, and he came over shortly thereafter.
Now,
So then they were all here.
had the rest of the family changed their name to Altenborg,
No.
or they were still Andersons?
They're still all Andersons.
Okay.
That's confused a lot of people. I never cared much for the name Altenborg.
So your grandfather is named Anderson.
And my uncles were Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a cousin that lives here in the home, Everett Anderson. His name's still Anderson. So he was the only one that changed his name.
Okay. All right. And then you say your father was a cabinet maker. Now, where did you live? What were you about where in town?
Well, my mother was married before she married my dad. And she was married to an Anderson,
Oh,
but
really?
a different family completely. And he died. And then evidently my mother and father started seeing one another, and they got married. And at the time I was born, I was born in the house where they were living. It's 103 North First, which is straight north of the police station, the second house north, across the street. I don't know who's lived there since you were young. Boots Anderson's lived there a while.
Did the Hawkinsons?
Hawkinson?
No. No, they were probably Edna Hawkinson.
Well, she lived 2 doors north of there.
All right.
But Boots Anderson's lived there, and Ray Hahn lived there for a while. And
well, I know the house. It's a little house, cute little house.
103 North First.
And that was your childhood home then?
Yeah, I was born there and lived there till I was in the 5th grade.
And then where did you move?
Well, times were tough. And my dad wasn't doing much work as a cabinet maker, so Mother was offered a job as manager of the college cafeteria. And I don't know why. She'd never had a bit of experience in that kind of work. But I remember Dr. Pureblood coming to the house and talking to her about it and offering her the job, and she felt like she should take it because Dad wasn't making that much money. So she accepted, and I was in the 5th grade, and we had to move to the college.
Oh.
Part of her salary was having a place to live.
Okay.
So they lived on the 1st floor of Old Main, and I thought it was the end of the world.
Oh, no, really?
Moving 4 or 5 blocks away from all my neighborhood kids. It was just awful. I didn't think I'd survive moving.
You were still on First Street even?
Yeah, we stayed on First, but they had an apartment, a little apartment, and I lived with them in that apartment till I was in high school. And that's where we moved, because she got that job, and it was a great job, but she got a little money, plus we all got to eat free.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the story on our moving to the college.
Now, what was your mother's maiden name?
Nelson.
Nelson, okay. And had her family been longtime residents of the valley?
I have no history on Mother.
Okay. Right.
She was adopted.
Oh.
When she was very young, I assume, and I don't know a single relative of hers. I've never really looked into it. I think I did a little inquiring years and years ago, and I couldn't come up with anything. So I kind of think she was born around here, and it was never advertised or anything. And
sure.
Kept pretty quiet, so I may have a bunch of relatives around here, but I don't know who they are.
Sure.
So I have no history on her family at all.
Okay. Now then, so you're living in Old Main, and you said, what was it, 5th grade? You moved in there. Then you said you got to high school. Did you live someplace else then?
Well, then I got a room upstairs.
Oh.
The boys' dorm. I had grown up, see.
Oh, boy.
Freshman in high school. So that I had a room upstairs then, which was nicer. The room I had with my folks, there was no privacy. You had to go right through my bedroom to get to the rest of the house.
Oh, yeah.
So my freshman year in high school, I got a little room up in the boys' dorm.
Oh, boy, that had to be exciting for a high school kid.
It was.
Be living with those big college boys, huh?
I enjoyed it. That's why I know so many of the old college kids.
Sure.
I know a lot of them because I lived there 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, high school, and college. But the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, I was just a kid, but I knew a lot of those students, like Irma Lindquist.
Mm-hmm.
See, she's 10 years older than I am, so she wouldn't have quite been in college, but she came along a little later, so
Right.
I knew her as a grade schooler, and she was in college, and I knew a lot of the kids.
So you're obviously then an only child.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I have a half brother. My mother had him before
okay.
she married my dad.
Is he an Anderson?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's Floyd Anderson was his name. He lived in Nebraska most of the time, and then in Omaha he was a postal inspector.
Ah. Okay.
So they moved back here after he retired, but I don't remember the year.
So now we're up to there aren't many people you talk to who actually lived in Old Main. I went to school there, but I certainly didn't live there.
I knew every corner of that building.
I'll bet.
We used to play cowboy and Indian in the basement, crawl around in the gutter up above, which we must have been crazy.
There were a lot of nooks and crannies in that building, weren't there?
A lot of people don't know about. But you know, it didn't bother me when they tore it down
Really?
at all. And I lived there 12 years.
Yeah.
But it just didn't bother. I got a couple of bricks. That was about it.
What do you remember of Dr. Deere and his museum up on, what, the 5th floor, wasn't it?
You know, the museum was on the 2nd floor.
Second floor, okay.
He taught science courses on the 5th floor.
On the 5th floor, okay.
Yeah, I remember Pop real well. I had him as a teacher, and I knew him. He was in charge of the boys' dorm. What a job. He and his wife had charge of it. And, you know, there were a lot of boys staying up there, and they were ornery and didn't have a lot of bossing. He didn't bother them too much till it got real wild. So I remember, I liked Pop, and as a teacher and a person. I knew his wives.
And what about Dr. Pillblood? What are your memories of him?
Well, I remember him fairly well. Of course, that first memory was when he came over to our house to hire a mother. That was a blow. But really didn't, you saw him, I think he talked a lot at chapel, and he's walking around the campus very stately and kind of like a high school superintendent. You were kind of scared of him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he just seemed to have a lot of discipline, just one of those people. And, he was a state senator too.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think he's probably a good president.
Now, as the 30s progressed and the economy started getting better, did your father then start getting some cabinetry jobs again? Did that start happening?
He got more as the times got better, and then he did go into picture framing. He didn't learn any of that in the apprenticeship. He had to serve an apprenticeship for 9 years.
Oh my!
To become a cabinet maker.
Huh? That's over in Sweden, right?
In Europe, yeah. But he got a little more work, and during the Depression, and even after that, he did a lot of furniture repairing. He couldn't make anything, nobody could buy it, but he did a lot of repairing. But he got more work. He did all of the Sands framing.
Oh.
I bet there was hardly a picture he painted that Dad didn't frame.
No, not one in here, but I'm sure there are plenty here.
But they're just all, in fact, I've got several that says with best wishes to John Altenborg on the picture, that he just gave to Dad, probably as part pay.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, he had a tough time too.
Oh yeah.
But I've got several where he wrote that on there, and Dad did all of his crating when he'd ship pictures to Chicago or Denver for an art exhibit, crate them in great big heavy boxes and all kinds of stuffing in there, and so they wouldn't break or bust. And I know some of the boxes were so big he couldn't handle them, so I was big enough then to go down and help him turn them and lift them and move them.
Now, where was your dad's shop by this time?
At that time, it was back of where the Vasa Club is.
Oh, okay.
They had a little building in the back part. And then he had part of the building in front, about just where the Vasa Club is.
Uh-huh.
He had that area, and then a little wooden tin structure in the back where he did his furniture making. But I think in the front he did most of his picture framing.
Okay.
So he used to even drive Sands to Colorado. They never could drive.
Oh.
And he had an old Buick or Hudson or something, and he'd drive them out, and he'd go get them in the fall when it was time for school. There were several people that did that. Louis Hoffermail did it, Myron Van did it, and my dad did it some. I remember visiting them at Estes Park, they had a cabin, and we were out there one summer. My dad had asthma, and Colorado weather would help him. So we spent a week or a day with Son Saint. Of course, I didn't know anything about art then, but it was fun to be up there in the foothills.
Oh, sure.
So I remember that.
Well, what was Dr. Son Saint like as an individual?
Well, all these, it must be a Swedish trait. They were all reserved, stately gentlemen, very impressive, polite gentlemen. But Pueblood was that way, Son Saint was that way, Deer to some extent, Torsing, Jaderberg, they're all, I don't know.
Emery Lindquist.
Emery, he was a little younger than that,
Right.
but they were just impressive people. They really were. Bethany really had some people at that time.
Rossi and Wallen.
Rossi's, yeah, he was one of the main ones. He was stately as they come.
Jaderborg.
Jaderberg and Lofgren,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure we left out a lot of them. But,
Torsing.
yeah, but they were, they weren't the guys that come up and slap you on the back and say, how are you doing, or anything. They just weren't built that way. And, but they were nice, great people. That's the way I remember it.
Mm-hmm. Now, John, you then became a student at Bethany College. And I remember seeing pictures in your books of you on the tennis team. And did you play other sports as well?
I played football and basketball and tennis. And, they were fun. I enjoyed them. I had Ray Hahn was coached me most of the time. He coached everything, of course, like they did. He had football, track, basketball. He didn't have tennis. Our economics professor had tennis. He never had a hold of a racket in his life, I don't think. But yeah, the guy I roomed with the last 3 years in college, who came from Gary, Indiana, he played football. Always had his nose broken.
Oh.
All year long it was broken.
Do you remember his name?
Walter Nabhan.
Okay.
And he didn't like people to know it. He was a Syrian.
Oh.
His dad was from Syria. And he had a big nose.
Yeah.
And it was always broken. He always had to wear a nose guard over that thing. Yeah, he came down there, about 4 or 5 kids that came here from Gary. It was really Miller, a suburb of Gary. And they came because the new Bible teacher was from that area, and he brought these kids with him.
Oh.
They were really a nice bunch of guys.
Now, so we're getting into an interesting period of time in world history now. You're about ready to graduate from college, and there's a lot of turmoil in Europe. And what year did you graduate from college?
40.
40, so right at the beginning of World War II. Did you serve in the war?
Yes.
Okay, which branch?
Army.
In the Army, okay.
I thought a friend and I were going to go to law school. And neither one of us had any money, so we were going to teach a couple of years. See if we could save anything to go to law school. So I taught 2 years.
What did you teach and where?
Well, I taught in Paxton, Nebraska, way out by North Platte, the school year of 40-41. And I had biology and history and I think an orientation course or something. And the second year, Roxbury still had a high school, and I got a chance to go there, which was only 15 miles from home. Paxton was 400.
Yep.
So I went over to Roxbury, and let's see, I taught typing and bookkeeping and history. But when I was at the end of that school year, I was drafted. I couldn't enlist because I had one eye that wasn't good enough, so I was drafted and went into the Army then towards the end of 1942.
So that would have been, the war had already, the U.S. had entered the war in late 41, so we would have had been in the war practically a year.
Yeah, a year. Oh, yeah, it was about a year.
There was no deferment for a teacher?
No.
No?
No.
So you were
I
drafted?
don't know that there was any then, maybe farm kids.
Yeah.
That's all I remember offhand.
So you were drafted, went into the Army. Where did you have your basic training? Do you remember that?
I went into the Air Corps to begin with.
Okay.
And I was sent to Miami, Florida, and I had my basic training in Miami, Florida. And then when I got through, I was sent to Tyndall Field, Florida, which was a gunner school, flight machine gunner school. I got stuck behind a desk, and I got tired of that. I didn't like it. So I applied for transfer to the infantry, if you can imagine a guy doing that. But I did. I applied for transfer to the infantry, and I got it. So then I went to Camp Maxey, Texas, and took some infantry training. And got out of the Air Corps. I couldn't fly. I just knew I was going to be sitting behind a desk the rest of the war.
Sure.
I didn't like that.
Had you ever been outside of Kansas and Nebraska before you joined the Army?
Not much. I was at Colorado,
Colorado, that's
once.
right, okay. But otherwise, you
We'd
had never
been
been.
up to Wyoming. That's
Okay.
about it right in this area.
Was it a big culture shock? Suddenly here's Miami, Florida, for this hometown boy?
Well, it wasn't so much culture. It was just a shock. I think the scenery.
Oh,
For some reason, they wouldn't tell us where we were going. It was still pretty secretive then. We didn't know where we were going. And I don't remember if they kept the blinds down on the train. Until we got off the train, we didn't know where we were. And you got off and saw palm trees. That was a shock.
oh, yeah,
You'd never seen a palm tree in your life.
sure.
And orange trees. So Miami wasn't that big at that time. It was a cultural shock because of the climate and the difference in the landscape and everything. So that was a shock. But Miami didn't have any tall buildings to speak of. They didn't have all the hotels along the
Right.
coast like they have now. So that wasn't such a shock, really.
Well, now that you're in the Army, where were you ultimately stationed?
Well, let's see.
Did you go to Europe, for instance, or?
Yeah, I was in this country a while longer. I was in Texas taking infantry training, then I went to Europe. It was getting towards the last 6 to 8 months of the war. And I was trying to think, we landed in Le Havre, France, about in December, I think, of 44. And then messed around in France for a while. And gradually, I got assigned to the 65th Infantry Division, and I didn't train with them. They'd been trained before. So our group that was going over then were just replacements.
Mm-hmm.
We were replacing people that had been hurt or killed or ran away or something. And so we were finally attached to the 65th Infantry Division.
And so you were in Europe in the Army when the war in Europe came to an end?
Yeah, that was May. Yeah, we were there. Actually, we were pretty close to Berlin, and we thought our outfit was going to be the first ones into Berlin, but we were supposed to, but the Americans and the Russians worked out a deal. Maybe you've heard about that.
Oh, yeah.
Where the Russians wanted to go in first, and So the Americans let them enter Berlin first, and so they turned us around, and we ended up in Austria.
Oh.
So that was the end of that.
Well, now, once the war was over, how long did it take before you got out of the Army?
Well, we laid around over there, and it was latter part of August or the 1st of September.
1945.
45.
Okay.
Then we came back here, and the Japanese war was over. It wasn't over, when the one ended over there, so some of us expected to go to the Pacific, but it was over, so then it was just a matter of sending everybody to a center where they could get discharged, and I was sent to, I think it was a Camp Fannin in Texas, and I got out in November
Okay.
45.
Well, then you came back to Lindsborg, I assume?
Well, I was married then. Betty and I had just gotten married.
Okay, where did you meet her? How did you?
We met at Bethany.
Oh, so you had known her all the way through the
Yeah,
war
yeah.
and through that whole, okay.
So,
And what was her maiden name?
Hopkins.
Hopkins. In relation to any of the Hopkins here in
No,
town?
no, not at all. And she was adopted.
Oh, uh-huh.
So we don't know anything about her family either.
So your mother was adopted and your wife was
Right,
adopted?
yeah.
Okay,
So we just have nobody on
right.
those two sides of the family.
So you and Betty, you came back and you and Betty got married?
We got married in the service in Miami, Florida, and wasn't too long after that I went overseas. So then, let's see, I came back. She was staying in Enid with her folks, and,
You said Enid?
Enid.
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped there and saw Terry for the first time.
Well, really, he was already alive, huh? Okay.
And I don't know how we got to Lynn. We came up to Lindsborg. I must have borrowed my dad's car or her dad's car or something. And stayed with my folks, and I got a job at the mill.
Rodney?
Rodney Milling Company.
Okay.
I'd worked there a little before I went in the service, so I got a job there from about sometime in December till about a couple months, middle of February. And then we went to Topeka, and we found an apartment, and I think I borrowed Dad's car, and we got enrolled. She's enrolled in the regular college, but she hadn't finished
At
college.
Washburn?
So she enrolled in a regular college, and I enrolled in the law school, and we got going. It only took 2 years then because everybody coming out was older, and they put kind of a new program in where you could go all year long,
Oh.
and you could finish in 2 years if you went all year long, which is what everybody was doing. Because they were older. I think the average age was 29,
Uh-huh.
and they wanted to get out. So we got through, and she got through, and we both got through in 2 years. We started in 46, and we both got out in spring of 48.
So you would have been 30-ish about this time, about 30 years old in 48.
I've been
Yeah.
29.
29, okay.
29, I guess.
Now, once you graduated from law school, and I'm assuming Betty finished her bachelor degree, did you immediately come back to Lindsborg to practice law?
Yeah, no place else to go. That's what I tell everybody. I didn't have everybody standing in line to offer me a
You didn't
job.
have any big law firms out of New York or Chicago
Nothing
coming in to
even
make
close,
offers,
no.
huh? Okay.
So I didn't know where else to go, and I probably would have come back anyway, but one reason I came back was, Ebba Fornberg,
Sure.
and she offered me a job. The bank owned the Lindsborg News Record. They'd made him a loan, and Paul Gustafson couldn't pay it, so he just turned the newspaper facility over to them. So the bank owned the Lindsborg News Record. And she said if I'd come back to Lindsborg, she'd pay me $50 a week to help run the newspaper. And I didn't know a thing about a newspaper. So I did. That $50 a week looked awfully good when you got a wife and a little kid. So I came back, and she gave me the job in the news record, but I was in charge of advertising, and that's a pain in the neck. I wrote sports, and then had to get the ads every week. So I did that for about a year. And then...
But you were also a licensed attorney.
Yeah, and I had a little office in the front of the news record, which was embarrassing. I built a couple little thin walls out of wallpaper, I think, or little cardboard.
Yeah.
Didn't have a phone. Had one desk. I think one set of books. And if somebody would want me, they'd have to call the news record, and I'd run in there and answer the phone. Or if I was going to call somebody, I had to go in the news record. But anyway, we survived. I had a little office there in the front for, I think it was about a year, but, you know, $50 a week, that really helped. Good grief. So I started building my practice up a little bit at a time. So after about a year, I was going to see if I could make it. And, I rented a little room on the southeast corner of the Sunstrom building. There's been so many things back there.
I know exactly.
There's been barber shops back there, and
beauty shops. And
2 rooms adjoined, but I rented just the one on the corner. So I had an office there for a while. Went from there.
And then you moved over across the street?
No, then I moved. Walden Peterson wanted to build an office. So he asked if I'd be interested in maybe renting part of it. And he drew kind of a rough design and wanted me to look at it and make any changes I wanted and see if I was interested, and I was. So he kind of made it according to what I wanted. It wasn't very big, but it was a nice office. Well, this McMillan is in there now.
Yes,
Barry
right,
McMillan.
That would have been maybe in the 60s?
Well, I've lost,
Yeah, okay.
probably.
So you never did practice in the office where Bill Gusenius is now?
Yeah.
You did go in there too, okay.
So I went in with Walden, and I was there from, well, it probably was the early 60s.
Sometime in the 60s, because I can still remember the ice plant being there.
So 76, Bill was a senior in law school. And I contacted him if he'd be interested in coming to Lindsborg. And I guess he didn't have anything in mind either, so he was. So we worked out a deal. So he came here in about August of 76. Well, then, that building where Bill is now, I bought that and remodeled it. Did a lot of remodeling in there, so it would hold 2 lawyers and enough room for a library and whatever. So I bought that in 76, and then he came that August of 76, and been there ever since.
The rest is history.
30 years. He's been there 30 years.
My goodness.
I can't believe it.
Now, was it a co-practice, or were you individual attorneys?
No, we were a partnership.
Partnership, okay.
And then we had an agreement. Well, that wasn't in the partnership. But then I decided I kind of wanted to quit. So then we worked out a buy and sell agreement. He bought both the building and the practice. And I think I stayed in there a year after just kind of finishing stuff I'd started. That's been it. It really made a nice office. It was real comfortable.
Was that the Malms?
Elmer Peterson had
Elmer Peterson had an insurance office in there.
He had the east side, and Oscar Gunnarsson had
that's
the west side.
Paint.
But Elmer had bought the other side, Elmer Peterson. So he owned it all, and his wife inherited it, so it was hers when I bought it.
Sure.
But it really made a nice office. It wasn't anything big or elaborate, but across the street from the post office, a block from the bank, no parking problems. So it was, I'm sure that's why Bill has stayed there. It's just a nice little office, that's all.
And of course, he and Carol are sharing it now with her real
Yeah,
estate.
it's perfect for her. She doesn't have any expense at all.
Right.
It's perfect. She's
Now,
got her own separate door.
speaking of the practice of law, how did you become interested in law?
I think there were two reasons that I can recall. One summer, some of us were working out here on the first viaduct in '36. And we'd work, you could only work 30 hours a week so they could employ more people.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd work 30 hours a week. It'd be 6 hours a day for 5 days. And some of us wanted to take business law, but we worked during the day. And so Dr. DeCou, who taught that course, we talked to him. He said, sure, he'd come up and meet with us in the evening. So there were about 3 of us that go up and meet with him, I think every evening during the week. And it was just great, just sit there. He was a good teacher, and no big class, just the 3 of us, and we were interested in learning, not goofing off or getting some credit. So that's one, I just liked business law, the different subjects it would cover. And then I had this good friend, Paul Engstrand, who wanted to be a lawyer, I think, about all of his life, and we were good friends, and we used to talk. And kid, I didn't think I could ever become a lawyer or even care that much about it, except this class got me interested.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about it, and I always kidded. I said, well, you can take care of the business and I'll play golf with the clients. But he started a year before I did. He started before he went into service. And he got out a little before I did. So he was in a firm out in California. He went to school in California. And they were in San Diego, and just 3 in the firm. And so when I got out of school, he said if I'd come out there, they'd give me a job. And I thought about it a long time, but I was just scared to death. I'd had to take the California bar.
Mm-hmm.
And their law, they have it's a different laws in Kansas, a lot of them. And I just didn't have the guts to do it. I was married and had a little boy, and I just couldn't I came awfully close, but I'd had to borrow the money to go, and I just didn't have the guts to go, so I never did. But he comes back about every year now, and they did real well. The 3-man firm, they got to be about a 50-man firm.
Whoa. Mm.
Deborah worked for him for a while.
Okay.
And they went broke.
Oh, no.
I can't believe a law firm going broke. I never could believe that. Yeah, they got in trouble over, this isn't Lindsborg history, I
Right.
guess. But they did. Just unbelievable, but they all got jobs, and Debbie really ended up a lot better off. She got lucky. But I never, I can see where a car dealer who has millions of dollars invested in inventory might go broke, but I just can't figure out a law firm going broke. But what happened, they wanted to move, and they had a nice office. And they built this new building in downtown San Diego, and they wanted to move there. It's close to the courthouses, and so they rented 2 floors for $1 million a year.
Boy.
And it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be poor management or something. It just didn't make sense at all. I never could figure it out. I never asked him about it when he
No,
comes.
it's sometimes best What do you remember of lawyers in Lindsborg back when you were a child? Did you pay any attention to the fact that we had lawyers, or remember who they were?
Oh, you have to. The only one was Eric Jernberg.
Jernberg, okay.
And at the time I moved to Lindsborg, he had his office in McPherson. He was county attorney.
Uh-huh.
So he officed in McPherson and then lived here. But when I came here, then he moved back. But he was the only one living here. But the biggest competition, mostly because of your dad's bank, that was before, they sent all the legal business to McPherson.
Oh.
Boy, it made it tough. But Johnson, Rhodes, and Lemberg were the bank's attorneys, so you can't, so I couldn't fuss too much about it. They were the bank's attorneys, the stockholders, and whatever, but they not only did the bank's legal work, but, something would come into Ebba, it'd go down to McPherson.
Oh, yeah.
And that made it tough, so it wasn't just the lawyers here. Eric was the only other one, the two of us, and we both were fighting the same thing.
Sure.
And Rupenthal was a good friend of your dad's.
Yes, he was.
And, you've got to understand those things. And, but gradually, people started changing. And I think when Ebba died, a lot of them switched in because she wasn't around then. So your dad was better to me than Ebba.
Okay. Good, I'm glad to hear
And
that.
she was good to me. She just
Sure.
sent business.
That's the way it had been for years.
It was tough. But your dad helped me.
Well, that's good. Now then, tell us about your family. You've mentioned Terry a few times, and he was born in what year?
45, 1945.
Okay. And you and Betty came back to Lindsborg, and in 48.
He was born in Enid.
Okay. But then you have a daughter, born in 49,
Right,
and that's commonly known as Debbie.
right.
And what did you tell us about that? She was born here, and Dr. Hallward, I would imagine, delivered her.
She was born here.
What has Debbie done with her life? Where has she gone? Does she have any?
Well, she stayed here till she went to high school with you till her senior year, or the last half of her senior year. Then she'd met this fellow out there, and she'd gone out there to work at Estes Park. So she met him, and of course couldn't live without him, and made life miserable for us. And finally we told her if she'd finish school, we'd consent to her going out there and getting married. So she agreed to that, and we went out for the wedding, and they're married in Vail, Colorado. And then Vail didn't have a high school, so she had to go to a high school a little ways from Vail. So Betty went out and spent most of the winter with them. Gosh, they had a rough winter. But during the weekends, Debbie's husband had a restaurant in Vail and also a restaurant in Estes Park. And when the weather got better, the business went down in Vail and went up in Estes Park. So he'd go to Estes Park, and so Mother and Betty and Debbie drive over to Estes Park every weekend through the mountains and scare you to death. So they did that, and then Debbie graduated from that school in the spring of 40.
Well, we would have graduated, our class graduated 67.
Well, 67. Yeah, that's when Terry graduated from college.
Right.
Yeah, I suppose that's when she graduated there, because she just picked up from here and went out there.
Okay.
And she got her degree.
Sure.
And they lived in Estes Park for a while, and then he didn't like the seasonal part of it, so they moved to West Palm Beach, Florida, and he got into the restaurant business there. And he was really a good restaurant man, and I about the only one in the family that liked him, but he just was too ambitious. So ambitious. But anyway, they were in the restaurant business in West Palm Beach for a few years. Then he decided he wanted to go to California. So they moved to San Diego, and he got into the restaurant business there, and it's still too ambitious. Debbie just had it, so they got divorced. And then she remarried a few years later, and she's still married to that man.
Does she have any children?
She had two by the first marriage.
Okay.
And one of them lives in San Diego and one in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, okay. Do you have any great-grandkids then?
Two.
Them, okay.
Two.
Well, then there's Jimmy.
Jimmy, yeah.
He came along at what, about 52 or so, 53?
He was born in 52.
Okay.
And he went to Lindsborg grade school, high school, and he was going out to Barton County Community College, and he just went out there and horsed around for a year. I don't know if he even went to class. I don't think he did. But anyway, that didn't work out, so then he went to Emporia, and it wasn't any better there. So he quit school at Emporia, and the minute he quit, they drafted him. You know, he had to be in school at that time to avoid the draft. And he was the last one in McPherson County to be drafted.
Wow. Huh.
So he went in the Army for 2 years, came back. Then he went down where Debbie was. At that time, they were still in Florida.
Florida, okay.
So he went down there, and her husband gave him a job in a restaurant. I think he even managed one of them. So he stayed in Florida. After they moved to California, he still stayed there. And he got a job with UPS as a driver, and he worked with them until, well, he's been here 4 years. I don't remember when he hurt his back working for them.
Mm-hmm.
Or just wrecked his back, but I suppose that was 5 or 6 years ago, because he's been back here 4. So he can't do anything heavy. He got some insurance money out of him.
And he has a son.
He has a boy, 14.
Jared.
And that ended in divorce too.
And Terry has how many kids?
He has three kids, 2 girls and a boy, and they all live in that Longmont, Boulder area. And he has 4 grandkids.
Uh-huh.
The boy is married, and the oldest girl is married. The youngest girl isn't married. She's single.
Now, who did Terry marry?
Well, her name was Dorothy Smith. Her mother was Genevieve. Her dad was a chaplain out at the air base, and he was killed in a car wreck between Salina and Lindsborg, and she was in the 8th grade. So then her mother continued living here, and she worked at the college a while.
Right.
As a telephone operator. She lived here till she died. That's about it, I guess.
So they've been married a good long while then.
Terry's?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 36. I was trying to think how old. 60, I can't, 30.
Well, if he graduated from college in 67, were they married then, right out of college?
Yeah.
So it'd be about 40 years now, pushing 40, 39, 38 years?
Yeah, 40. So they were married in 66, I guess it was.
Oh, okay, so this is their 40th year.
So this is 40, yeah,
Okay.
40. I couldn't get that straight, 66.
Now, John, I know that we're sitting at Bethany Home here in Lindsborg, Kansas today, and you were instrumental in some of the more recent history, in putting together some of the more recent history of Bethany Home. So much so that your picture is in their history book of Bethany Home.
Oh.
And can you tell us a little bit about your association with Bethany Home and what you accomplished in those years, what you and the other folks working together accomplished?
This is almost getting embarrassing. This is another deal where you're going to do anything to make a little money. But when we first moved back in 48, must have been 50, 51, a couple of board members came and wanted to know if I'd be part-time manager of the Bethany home.
Oh, my.
And what I know about Bethany home.
So first you're made a newspaper
But
editor.
Ebba had been doing a lot
Yeah,
of
and
that.
now you're going into the nursing home business.
Yeah.
Huh? Okay.
So they gave me $60 a month.
Better than the newspaper.
No, that was $50 a week.
Oh, $60 a month. Okay.
$60 a month.
All right, there we go.
And I got a few raises. And what little legal work they had, I got to do that. But no, I really kind of enjoyed it. It kind of grew on you. And rooms were $60 a month. But it wasn't a nursing home then. You had to be able to take care of yourself or find another place. But I don't know, they probably had 50 people here at the time, and the help was short. And remember, they grew their own potatoes, and they kept them in a storm cellar behind the old building. And they had their own cows, they'd milk, and their own chickens, and they'd get the eggs. But the people worked for practically nothing, and they got along. And then they finally built this Pioneer down here, the Pioneer Edition, and that helped. And this part was the old part. It was really old. They tore it down. Well, first of all, in 61, they added a kitchen, the dining room, the laundry room, and a golden annex. And I was helped with that, doing some of the legal work and finding a loan and messing around. So, but when they had the inauguration, we were in Canada. I was a lieutenant governor of Division 5 Kiwanis, and they had their international convention in Canada. So Betty and I and Deborah were up there, so I didn't get to take part in their, when they initiated the dining hall and the golden annex. So I worked with them for, I don't know, 12 years probably. I attended all the board meetings, and I was the one that had to make all the reports because, you know, the board members didn't know what was going on. They were scattered all around. And Reverend Baum was president, and he was just great. You never knew him, did you?
I don't think so, no.
He was a Bethany church minister. He was the greatest guy. I just loved him. And then Anton Nelson took his place, and then he became president of Bethany Home. It seemed like whoever was pastor of Bethany Church, they were supposed to be president of Bethany Home. But we had a lot of local members. I sat down, and we had some from Assyrian, Marquette, McPherson, mostly closer on Hutchinson. We had some, and they met every month. And they had problems just like they have now.
Oh, sure. Well, that was a part of your involvement with the practice of law. Then you did law work for the college, or for the home.
Yeah.
But what about being city attorney and other aspects of your law practice? Did you have any really interesting, exciting cases that you got to work on, or did you take any criminal law, for instance? Or?
Well, yeah, you have to do some of it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing like you see on TV.
Sure. Oh. Hi. Come on in.
Oh, hi. I'm sorry.
Oh. Okay.
I forgot you were going to be here.
I can't.
How could you forget me?
I didn't see you, that's why.
I don't watch TV. Lawyer show, they're so ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
But it'd be so dull if they weren't. If they made them like they really are.
You're trying to say the practice of law is really
nobody
dull.
watch. But when you have a general practice of law in a little town, you run into everything.
Mm.
You almost have to. I mean, you get in a firm, you know, this guy specializes in this one in this, and that's all they know is their specialty. But you get in a little town and somebody comes in with something, you gotta say, well, I don't know, go somewhere else, and you hate to do that.
Sure.
So you have to spend a lot of time checking on it and studying it. So you get criminal law, you get corporation law, you get, you think every week, well, surely I'm not going to get something new I don't know anything about, and then you do. Right away you get something new. I hadn't been practicing very long when they decided to organize a rural high school district. It was Lindsborg's high school. They decided to go the rural high school, which took in a lot of territory, and there was a lot of opposition to it. And so they hired me to help them with that. And I didn't know anything about it. So you just had to work day and night at it and study it. And I couldn't find any other school that had done this because I didn't have anything to follow. So we got through it, but it was tough. And then they went from the rural high school district eventually to the unified school district. That's where they are now. But there was a lot of hard feeling on that rural high school.
Was that when they incorporated Smolin and Fallon?
Yeah.
Okay, and Roxbury eventually came into it.
Yeah, Roxbury eventually. And at the time, the first school board was only 3 members.
Oh my.
Which was, it was a big district. Well, then they changed the bylaws to make it 5 because they wanted to bring in some people from Fallon.
Sure.
Well, then I think when Roxbury came in, they added some more, so they got more representation. But it worked out. But gosh, there were a lot of people bitter because they knew it was going to raise their taxes, you know, and whenever you talk taxes, everybody just really gets upset. But that was interesting when it was all over. After it's finally all said and done, I feel like maybe it was worthwhile.
Sure.
But again, like I say, if you're in a little town, you're going to get some criminal cases. If they don't walk in the office, you're going to get appointed once in a while to rip somebody. Kind of pass that around. The judge is going to appoint you sometime to represent somebody. So you get involved in that too. It's just a headache.
Now, kind of bordering on the same subject, you and your family have always, to me, seemed to be a little more, shall we say, open-minded than your average Lindsborg resident. You seem to have more of a liberal slant to you. Do you consider yourself to be a liberal? Are you politically, are you a Democrat, for instance? Or do you mind even talking about that?
Well, not quite. I'm more of a moderate, I think.
Okay.
I think I'm a registered Republican, but I haven't always voted that way. I picked the candidate. I'm less a Republican all the time now, I can tell you that. I bet your dad's turning over in his grave.
Oh, yes.
Gosh. But I'm not that liberal, but I'm more liberal than I used to be. But I'd say I'd be a moderate more than anything.
Well, that's one thing I've always appreciated about you and your family is you I guess a good word is you seem liberated.
Yeah, I suppose.
And that's always encouraging. One more quick subject I have written down here, and that's Messiah Church. And has your family always been a member of Messiah Church? Members of Messiah Church?
I don't really know. I don't know. I should know. Mother was, I know, when she married my dad. And I don't think he belonged to any church, so then he joined Messiah Church. All his family were Baptists.
Oh, okay.
All of them. And he was the only one that wasn't, but all of his folks, his siblings, all their kids, they were all very good Baptists. And he never did join the Baptist church. And I think when he married Mother, she just made him join a church, and so he joined the Messiah Church.
And you and your family have been members there ever since you got, well, probably
It's
before.
the only church I've ever belonged to.
Sure.
So that'd be all my life. I think I may have. I imagine your dad was treasurer of the church for years and years.
Oh, I think he was, yeah.
Well, I had that job later, and gosh, I've lost track. I don't know, anywhere from 12 to 20 years,
Oh,
I
boy,
think.
yeah.
Once you get it, you know, if you don't get caught embezzling something, you got it for life.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. Believe it or not, we've talked for an hour.
Have we really?
We really have.
Good.
And I know I've heard new things, haven't you, Jay?
I didn't
Sometimes we do these interviews and you hear the same
I
information
didn't
over
see
and
Jay
over
go
and
to
over
sleep. Maybe he can sleep
Oh,
standing
no.
up.
Well, we want to thank you for your
Yeah,
time,
you're welcome.
John.
Glad to help.
We're talking to Delbert Jameson next.
He's
So
next. Well, I better
This
get
will be
out.
very interesting.
You better go take a rest.
We'll hear some more World War II stories,
Well,
only from the other side of the country.
mine weren't too exciting. I did get the combat infantry badge.
Oh, okay.
I was proud of that.
Now, let me ask you, do you have some pictures of yourself in uniform and that sort of thing at your house?
Yeah, not very good ones. I was in uniform when I got married, and
Okay.
I got a few from overseas coming back on the troop ship.
Well, we may want to come over sometime when it's a little cooler and nicer to get out and if they're at your house.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to kind of check and see just
Yeah.
where they are.
Well, what we could do is shoot pictures of them with a video camera and we can incorporate
I
them.
had a lady give me 2 cameras. What scared me to death, I was standing on this little corner of this little town somewhere in Germany. I don't remember where. And I don't remember. I was waiting for somebody, I guess, standing there, and all of a sudden this little old lady came running down the street and stopped and handed me 2 cameras.
Huh.
And I didn't know if they were loaded or what.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I better set them down. And I set them down and went around the corner and waited a while. I don't know why I thought it'd be any safer to go back then, but I did. And I kind of looked at them and they seemed all right. And so I kept them. I brought them home and I don't know what happened to them.
Did they have film in them?
Hmm?
Did they have film in them?
No,
Oh,
but I
okay.
found some film at a place later on in Austria. But one was one of these old accordion
Yeah, sure.
cameras.
I was
The other
gonna say,
one was a newer one, and they worked.
They might have had some.
But I couldn't figure it out, and then I heard later that word was going around that if anybody there, civilians were caught with cameras or guns, they'd be killed.
Oh, okay.
So she scared her to death, I guess.
Yeah.
Instead of hiding them somewhere, she just ran out and gave them to me.
Give them.